Good morning, everyone. I was going to start with good morning, Amsterdam, but I thought that will get me booed right away. So, good morning, Rotterdam. Hi, I'm Alex Tobin. I'm the head of PR and media at the Ocean Cleanup. I'm not used to standing in front of groups, which you would normally think, oh, the head of PR and media, he's always got a microphone in his hand. I'm used to helping a lot of people in the organization shine by making them spokespersons, by traveling with our founder and CEO, Boyan Slat, who you'll see a bit later again, for speaking engagements. I'll tell you all about that a bit later on. I'm going to try to keep this nice and short, but there's a lot to tell you because we've existed for 10 years and we do a lot, and we are the largest cleanup in history, and our goal is to rid the oceans of plastic. Now, why do we do that? There are millions of particles of plastic, trillions actually, in the oceans today. And a lot of it washes back up on beaches, and that's what you kind of see on coastlines when you do beach cleanups and things like that. I don't know, has anybody ever done anything? Okay, first row already, you're... So a lot of that washes up, but a lot of it does not wash back up onto beaches, and it goes out into the ocean, into what we call the Pacific, or the oceanic gyres. These are 5 big areas in the world where plastic accumulates. And the big one that you see in the middle there, the orange one, that's where we have our ocean operations right now. That's the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And there we have a mission, and I'll show you some images of that later, to clean up the plastic that's been there. And the plastic has been there often for decades. We found stuff from the 1960s that is still there. So it has, you know, that's the great thing about plastic. It's great to use as a material, but it's, the Germans have a word, unkaputtbar, you know, you can't break it down. Except, hold on, make sure I have the right, except if we don't get to it, basically, it starts breaking down. The UV light starts getting to it. It starts breaking into smaller plastics, into microplastics. This ends up in the food chain. You've probably read articles about this in the animal food chain, in the human food chain. It costs fishermen billions of dollars annually, so it's really bad for the economy. And yeah, we don't want to be eating a credit card full of plastic. I think one study said every week, I think it was. So we want to get to that before it, this is not working well. Excuse me, got to move a little closer here. Nope, clickers stopped working. Oh, here we go. Okay, how did we get started? It's good, I'll work this side of the room. This is our founder and CEO who turned the ripe old age of 29 yesterday, but he started this back, well, the Ocean Cleanups existed since 2013. And he started this back before then. He went diving, scuba diving in Greece. And he discovered that he saw more plastic bags floating around than fish. And a creative of sorts, an engineering creative, so there is a link. There's a link to treasure as well, because I think good ideas should be treasured. And he had an idea, he started the company by himself, had a TED Talk, was probably much smoother at it than I am, but practiced much more for that. And just, why can't we clean this up? So how do we work? And really, this is just a short version. There's a lot of information on our website, but I am also conscious that a lot of you have work to get to, or Zomer Carnival, or whatever is on the agenda today. So 2 things that we do. We work in oceans, and we also work in rivers, and I'll explain that a little bit more why we do that. So we have a dual strategy. I'll start on the right. We want to clean up what we call the legacy plastic. This stuff that's been out there since the 1960s in the ocean that is not going away. We want to clean that up, but we also want to close the tap, is what we call it. And closing the tap basically means, I'll get to closing the tap in a minute, more soon. One of the questions that I know you're going to ask at the end, and I have a few in my head that we get a lot, is, But how do you do this without damaging the environment that's out there? So we have a lot of precautions. I'll explain some of the ocean precautions, for example. Our system that's out there, and I'll show you a video of it, it basically, the speed I'm walking right now, it's about half that speed that the system moves in the Pacific Ocean. And it basically is a very, the system's about that high. So imagine two ships, and there's a mesh that goes over the top of the water, and that allows for the fish to swim in and out of the system, so we don't catch any of them, and the speed also. We have independent marine environmental scientists on all our ships to make sure that we're not catching anything other than plastic. That's the treasure that we want to catch. And also, we have an emergency release if we do catch something like a sea turtle, for example. Well, none of us joined the organization because we like to catch sea turtles. We'll leave that up to fishermen and the things they catch. We have an emergency release. So what that does is we hit a button and it just releases everything that we've caught. So often that means we will have to get rid of tons of plastic again, but we save that sea turtle. And that's really important to us because, those things, they, in the 10 years, hardly happen. But if it happens, we have these measures in place. And here we go. So that's what the system looks like here. It's kind of a smiley there. You've got the two ships there, and the system, and that little dongle that you see at the bottom there, that's not him sticking out his tongue. That is what we call the retention zone, and that's where the plastic gets collected. It looks really small, but let me see if I can show you what it looks like. Not bad for a day's worth of being out at sea. That's typical of one of the retentions, one of the extractions that we make. And to make sure that it doesn't just happen once, we do it again and again and again. And I don't know, how many Dutch people are here? Oh, quite a lot. Okay. Well, the ocean cleanup's been known in the Netherlands for a few years. And we often get the question, well, you guys have operated for a few years. What's going on? As you know, also as being creative, sometimes you have to try stuff and it doesn't work out right away and you have to come up with a new idea. We have definitely had that. There have been moments that we have failed in our mission and we've had to redesign a system, and we now have a system in place that works. And the proof of concept and the proof of technology, they're all there. And so now we are going from a startup to a scale up. We're becoming bigger. And I'll tell you about that in a minute, because now we know what works and what needs to get the job done. So this is the current system that we have. This is a render, so don't call me out on this looking artificial. And that you see there is system 3. That is the new system we're moving to. It's going from 800 meters in width to 2,400 meters, so that's almost 2.5 kilometers in width. And with fewer ships out there, we're able to catch a lot more trash. So that's what we're currently working on. I already have a question. Yes?
I'm curious, how do we know if there's a turtle there in the net?
Well, like I said, most turtles go under the net. We have, okay, so a lot of the things that we do are hardware. You see the hardware, but a lot of the stuff that we also use is software, and that's slightly geekier, but we use AI, we use software, we use heat maps, for example. So we also know where the trash is, and we employ what we call hotspot hunting, that we go after where all these accumulations of trash is. And yes, we have caught turtles before, but you know how we catch the turtles? They're dead. and their stomachs are full of plastic. So usually where there's a lot of plastic, where we are, there aren't any turtles in a healthy state. Yes?
And how would you notice that you catch a living turtle?
That's where we use our, what I was saying before, not only our environmental observers on board, but we have cameras all along the retention zone and all along the mesh. So they're constantly watched. We have what we call a cam skiff, and without wanting to get too technical, but we observe constantly because we're not always catching plastic. So we go out there. This is halfway between California and Hawaii. So it's a long way from anywhere. It takes a week just to get out there. And once we do, we observe everything once we're operating. And as soon as there is a sign that there is a turtle in the system, which, like I said, has happened, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 times in the 10 years, it's very rare, then we have ways that we try to go out and free it. And if that doesn't work, we flush the whole system. So we have divers that go out. Not always safe, so I don't talk about, because they might not always wear the proper protective gear in the middle of the ocean, but they do try everything to save that. And if it happens, then it's the case that there's an autopsy performed on the turtle, and that's when I said that's when we discover the plastic. And a lot of the stuff that we do, we also provide the data, we share the data with all sorts of scientific organizations. So, because not many people are out here. I'll gladly give you more specifics afterwards, but I'm also conscious of time, and I know the slide's still ahead, but it hardly happens, and we watch everything. In rivers, it's a completely different story. So rivers, this is near Los Angeles, Bayona Creek in California, and this is what we call an interceptor, this space shuttle here. And it's put in the mouth of a river, and what you see there are barriers keeping trash from flowing into the ocean. Rivers we consider the arteries of plastic, so the rivers transport a lot of the plastic into the oceans. In fact, I have a slide. There are 1,000 rivers that contribute 1% of the global total. So 80% of plastic that's in the ocean only comes from 1% of rivers. Let me put it that way. Just 1%. But that 1% is still 1,000 rivers. So it's still a lot of rivers. And on the map here, you can see the danger spots where the most trash comes into the ocean. Europe's pretty okay, but what you have to keep in mind is that there are a lot of areas, a lot of countries where the waste infrastructure program is just not as advanced as here. Here we put out the bins once a week, or you walk somewhere, you dump it in the ground, somebody else takes care of it. That's not the case. I just got back from Guatemala, for example, and people, we definitely don't point the finger because people just don't know what to do with their trash. There is no system in place. So we try to tackle those areas. So 80%, because the thing is, it just keeps going into the ocean then. You want to stop it, and your job is never done. So we have different types of interceptors. They're not all space shuttles like that for different scenarios, because if you know one river, you kind of know one river. They're all different. They all have different currents. They all have different problems. And this is how this one works. This is our interceptor original. So the barriers guide it to the mouth of this interceptor, which is, well, this is a different system, but it's all solar powered, 100% self-generated. It goes up a conveyor belt and it gets dumped into various dumpsters. And I'll tell you a bit about what we do with the trash once we've collected it. We currently we're up to 12 now, actually, in different parts of the world. So starting in California, but also Jamaica, the Dominican Republic, Guatemala, Malaysia, Vietnam, Indonesia. We currently have some other projects scheduled to deploy in Asia. And just to give you an idea, 1 day's worth of plastic in the River Klang in Malaysia is about the same amount of plastic that flows down the River Rhine or the River Danube in a year in Europe. each day you've got that. So people say, oh, you should come to, Rotterdam or something, there's stuff here. Yes, but the problem is far worse in other areas. So that's our priority right now. And so what happens to it? All right, I'm going to move to this side. You guys are, look. There we go. Okay, so two things. On the oceans, everything that we collect that you saw spilling onto the deck there is sorted by the crew on the ship, put into various containers. It gets offloaded. You see that big blue container there, and it gets brought to recycling plants that recycle the plastic that we get, and a lot of it is fishing nets, as you can see there. It's all done by hand, and it gets turned into eventually these pellets. And what the ocean cleanup does with these pellets, it's international waters, by the way, so no country feels responsible for this, and therefore it belongs to us. What we do with it, we first made these, which are sunglasses, and we sold them on our website at a very high price. There were 25,000 of these, and they're all sold out. And these are 100% ocean plastic. And we only did this not because we want to get into the sunglasses business, but because we wanted to show that it can be done, that this is quality plastic and you can make stuff with it. So we're currently not making sunglasses anymore, so I will be taking those with me. I got the last pair actually when I started. We are currently partnering with several organizations that want to buy our plastic, and we have very strict guidelines for that. If they do that, the most important thing to us is that it does not end up back in the ocean or in the environment. So at the moment, and it's never perfect, plastic is plastic, but we'd rather that be used than what we call virgin plastic, that's newly made plastic just for this stuff. So at the moment, for example, we're talking to Kia, which is a car manufacturer. They want to integrate it into their electric vehicles. There's certain guidelines that we use that it can't be used for everything, assuming that nobody's going to drive a Kia into the ocean again. Ba-dum. So yeah, that's what happens with the plastic for now. But we're also currently, we're getting more and more plastic, of course, so we're looking for more what we call off-takers to help there. Research plays a big part of what we do. So indeed, to mitigate, any bycatch, what's called bycatch, we always. So there's an example of some of the AI that we've been using to hotspot hunt and to find. Now, if Boyan were here, I know I'm just the plan B here, but Boyan would geek out and he'd talk to you 2 hours about all this software. I'm not going to do that. But research plays an important part, and environmental science, in what we do to leave as small a footprint as possible. How are we funded is a question we often get. Well, not a lot by the government, actually. Most of the funding that we receive, we're a nonprofit, so we don't make any money, first of all. We don't get any money on a structural basis, only on a project basis. So we're dependent on anything from school kids having a bake sale and helping out, or a multimillionaire saying, hey, I've got a spare $25 million, which happened last year. So that's how we get our funding, and it's always a challenge. It's always, because you want to scale up, you want to grow bigger, but how do you do that without being able to, get the proper funding? So that's why, and I'll bridge to this in a bit. That's why our communications team plays such an important part in what the ocean cleanup does, because the stuff that we do in rivers is visible by the community. You can drive there and you can see it, but you can't drive to the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So how do we translate that into something that is visible to people? So we do spend quite a bit of time and effort also communicating our philosophy, our ideas, our technology to the world, in order also to get more funding. It's a fact of life. And I think I'm okay in time. I got a 2-minute, I'm looking at the strict people in the back. I just want to show you a quick example of what it's like to work on the communications team. I'm not a great public speaker. Obviously, you have noticed that by now. The first week I was in the job, I got asked to co-present a live stream for 6 hours. I was in Rotterdam, a colleague was in California. Yeah, wonder how that worked. And just with the whole team there. And I just want to give you an idea of the stuff that we're able to produce with the comms team, the communications team at the Ocean Cleanup.
We're in full go mode here. We are about to tow Interceptor 007 from the Coast Guard base to Bayonne Creek.
I am not alone here at Mission Control. Let me kind of walk you around here a little bit. We've got engineers here, we've got scientists here.
We're skirting the coastline of the Palos Verdes Peninsula in Southern California between Long Beach and Bayonne Creek. Entire school of dolphins. When you go to some of these rivers and some of these places and you see the plastic the way that we do, you realize it's not their problem, but this is part of what we do this for.
Such a huge group of people who don't know each other, united by this common vision.
Everybody wants to help. Everybody's interested.
How is it going there in the Dominican Republic?
The situation here is quite exciting. The tourists look promising.
And this is Rotterdam speaking to the land crew.
I can actually see the interceptor. It's just off to my right. We're almost there.
So yeah, that was a big production. It was a nice welcome to the Ocean Cleanup for me, and I have to say it's been a wild ride ever since. I've only been with the organization since last August, and after that, you know, it's yeah, crazy stuff has happened. But I have to say, you know, we're a communications team. There are 10 of us. That's about 10% of the organization, and I'm like, you know, as creative. So, you know, I'm the head of PR and media, but we have people who film the videos, people who edit, we have graphic designers, we have copywriters, not so many illustrators, but, you know, we can work on that, because I know there are a few in the room. But it's a big team, and it's a wild ride, and I'm conscious that I can't tell you everything about 10 years Ocean Cleanup in a short amount of time, so this was really like a quick introduction, but I am going to be around after the talk. You are free to come up and ask me questions, and I think the format might allow for some other things. I'm going to hand it over to, oh yeah, that's me, by the way, so feel free to drop me a line.
Right. Yep, thank you. Alex,
Yes.
Q&A. Any questions? I have the first one, and it's a stupid question. Did you find anything which is like a treasure?
Yeah.
You did.
I should have brought a photo of him. We have a bear that we found in the Klang River in Malaysia, who actually featured prominently in our live stream as well, and he's Klang the bear. And when we found Klang, he went up one of the conveyor belts there that you saw in the Interceptor. When we found him, let's just say you didn't want to hug this teddy bear because Klang he'd seen stuff. So but we got Klang turned inside out, cleaned him, got rid of the maggots, and Klang is looking in great shape now. He's at our office, he's chilling in Rotterdam right now. literally chilling this summer. And yeah, we find a lot of weird stuff. In fact, we have a lot of stuff that one day we're going to put together a museum exhibit that we're working on of all the stuff that we found out there. Just crazy stuff. Some not safe for work, but there's everything from mannequins to we have a whole collection. Our first system that we used for the oceans was called Wilson, and we have a whole collection of Wilson volleyballs with Wilson and just all sorts of stuff that's out there. So yeah, one man's garbage is another man's treasure, I guess. Yeah.
Cool.
Any
other questions? Room for about 4 or 5.
I see Peyton had.
People get say that this thing set up in Malaysia. When do people get complacent with their rubbish, like it's going down the river and getting picked up anyway?
Yeah, that's a good one. But I mean, I think we work together in these projects. It's basically that says more about a person, I think. Like to be that we can't change the way certain people think if that's. So if I'm walking behind you and you dump something and I pick it up, you're just going to keep dumping stuff? That's not a very good reflection of you. I'm not trying to call you out, but I mean, we do work with, especially in the rivers, because they're all community-based, we work with the local authorities there. Like I said, got back from Guatemala, and it's the municipality there in Guatemala really wants to put a lot of work into educating people and making them aware. At the same time, they can't shirk responsibility because they also have to improve the infrastructure there, and we call them on it. We say, yeah, you can blame the people, but they need to know where to go in order to do this. So it's a long process. I mean, we often get, a correct comment that, to put it a bit bigger, well, you're just cleaning it up. Doesn't the world then just keep producing? And isn't that where the real problem is? Shouldn't we stop producing plastic and stuff? And for us, it's not an either-or problem. It's both. Both need to happen. So indeed, we need to have what we call upstream solutions that it stops. And we're involved with the UN and with plastic treaties and things like that behind the scenes, which I didn't want to totally bore you with today because it's very legalese, lawyer stuff. But it is. But the longer game. The fact remains that the plastic is out there and it's not being cleaned up. And it needs to be cleaned up. So it's a technology solution to one problem, but it's only a part of the bigger problem. And that's one that is going to be a longer game. Somebody compared it with, let's see, if you have a bunch of poor children who can't afford shoes, and a foundation comes along and starts providing them shoes, that's great, right? Nobody's going to say, well, but you haven't solved poverty yet. They're going to say, great, that you're giving them shoes for now. But the bigger problem, the underlying problem, is still poverty. So there's always a bigger underlying thing. And education and awareness is definitely something that we continue to work on. Also here. Time for one more? Yes?
Hi, my name is Roxana.
Hi, Roxana.
You talk about how you tackle the problem, but I was wondering if you have other collaborations or partnerships with companies to avoid that they produce more plastic.
We
The next part of the cycle.
We do. In fact, we have a collaboration with a company called Coca-Cola that a lot of people would raise an eyebrow at and say, well, that's a weird collaboration. I don't understand why you're doing that. And yeah, we do. And I'm not my words, but they are called a polluter by many people, quite a large one. Their bottles find their way into our systems. And we have found that not only are we taking some money from them, and by the way, our guidelines are very strict on what they can do with using the ocean cleanup as a name. So we don't just let them greenwash, or any company, just by partnering with us. But it's very, there are only 140 of us, and we have access to their boardroom, basically. And what you have to understand about these companies is that I've noticed, and also in the jobs I had before this, is that a lot of the pressure to change and to improve doesn't come from outside, it comes from the employees of the company because they want to do something better. So there's been quite a movement there on several projects, especially in the Rivers project. You know, we also have different partnerships with bands like Coldplay who don't pollute quite as much and who have a lot of initiatives, and we were featured in their concerts. Or, well, Kia I mentioned. There are several types of partnerships that we do, but we don't sell our name cheaply, let me put it that way. It comes with, they have to deliver certain things in order for us to continue the partnership. So we kind of try to keep them in check as much as possible. And it's not something done overnight. These companies are slow, and you know, it can come from stuff like moving back to glass instead of plastic. But then glass is much heavier, and it costs more fuel to transport. There are all sorts of complicated things. We can't change human behavior overnight, and we're always focused on our bit of the problem as well. But we do want to engage with these people. We think it's better to engage with them than just to ignore them and do our own thing. I think there's a lot of that going on, and it doesn't really help communicate the problem that affects everybody, I think. Yes.
In Rotterdam, there's also a smaller organization called Clear Rivers, and I was wondering, do you work together with these kind of smaller organizations, and if you do, what does it look like?
I don't really know the answer to that question. I know of Clear Rivers, and I know, we regularly meet other organizations, like the Great Bubble Barrier is also here in the Netherlands, Plastic Soup Foundation, things like that. It's a small group of people, as you can imagine, ons kent ons, as you would say in Dutch. So it's, but no, there's no, because most of our mission is not focused in the Netherlands. So some of these have more of a national or European focus. We're, what I showed with the rivers, for example, we think the problem, we need to prioritize and kind of fix those areas first. But I know that, from a PR perspective, we also work with them together a lot to kind of try to make a statement together. And when we were at the Plastics Treaty in Paris, what was it, August? No, it's August now. Is it May or June? Yeah, it was beginning of June. We were in Paris. We regularly meet these colleagues, and we discuss a lot. But there's no structural working together at the moment. But we're friendly. I mean, it's not like it's a big competition, because I mean, our goal is to put ourselves out of business. That's really our goal. We want, and it's not just saying that, we want to remove 90% of all the floating ocean plastics by 2040, and that's a concrete goal. And whoever can literally and figuratively jump on board and help us with that, is welcome to. So thanks.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yep.